Okay, welcome everybody. Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the Bridge Code of Jewish Law, Chapter 57, number 5. Chapter 57, number 5. So we are discussing the brachas and food, and specifically we're discussing which blessings, which brachas can exempt other foods. So we're going to say number 5, very similar to what we said previously. Previously, we spoke about if someone made hadoma or ha'etz, on the fruit of the ground or the fruit of the tree, for on one food, and other food is coming out or comes out, and we discussed when the original blessing applies to the new food that comes out. If he had in mind, it's whatever they bring, he has in mind, or various things, or the food was in front of him. So now we're going to say very similar idea about the bracha shehakol. So shehakol is the all-inclusive blessing. Okay, so number 5. Beirach ala sheikha. He made a blessing on beer. So I sometimes wonder whether this was really originally written in Hungary or Australia. In Australia, you start the meal with beer, right? So you make the bracha on beer. And when you made the bracha, this kaven, you had in mind, any other foods that are shahakal they're going to bring, because you're starting to eat. You made the blessing on the drink that you're having, as an appetizer, and you have in mind any food that comes out that's shahakal. This bracha is going on all that food as well.
We
okay, that's what you had in mind.
We make that bracha after Havdalah. Bracha tal beer, bracha tal soda.
Right, that's it. The Hevil loy dogim. And then they brought him fish. He doesn't need to make a blessing on the fish, because the fish, its blessing was already taken care of, because when he made the blessing on the beer, which is the same blessing, shehakol is on beer and fish, and he had in mind whatever they're going to bring him, so it's exempt. He doesn't need to make a new bracha. However, im stam, he didn't have anything in mind, right? When he made the bracha, he just made the bracha and he ate and he drank beer. Then afilu in b'shasha v'yos adogim adaim ha'sheichel afanov. Even if when they bring him the fish, he still has some beer left in front of him that he made the blessing on. Nevertheless, he has to make a bracha on the fish, because he wasn't intending anything else. His bracha was just on the beer. Now, this is different to what we said about fruit. Fruit, we said that fruit, we said 3 things. Fruit, we said, same as the first one. If you made the blessing on the fruit and you had in mind any fruit that comes out, then they bring more fruit, don't have to eat it. Then, not the case we said here, but if you had in mind only the fruit you're eating now, I'm saying the blessing on this piece of mango, and you have no intention, specifically intention not to eat more, then if they bring more fruit and you change your mind, you have to make another blessing. Now, the equivalent of what we're saying here, which is a different outcome, but you didn't have in mind anything. You just made a blessing of fruit and you weren't thinking about more or only this. You were just saying blessings habitually, like a robot. Just saying my blessing. Then, so you didn't have in mind other things, but you didn't specifically not have in mind other things. So we said, then if they bring you more, and what you made the blessing on, there's still some left, it becomes part of one eating and you don't need a new blessing. But by the shehakol, you do. And we can explain the difference. V'loi dame lepeirus. This is not the same as fruit. Why isn't it the same as fruit? Afilu she'elu tepuchim. Because even with fruits, the first ones are apples. Ve'elu goizim. And the next one they bring him are nuts. Become mokim, nevertheless, hakol min oichelhu. They're all one type of solid food. So he made a blessing on apples. He made her eights. And then they brought him a nut platter. And he still got some apples left. He didn't have in mind, if he had in mind any other things that are the same blessing, it goes, well, then obviously there's no problem. And if he had in mind, I'm only eating this apple and nothing else, then when they bring nuts, of course he has to make a new blessing. But if he just said the blessing on apple, he just said it. He wasn't thinking more, wasn't thinking only, he wasn't thinking anything. And then they brought him nuts. Since it's the same blessing, he doesn't need a new blessing because they're both similar. They're solid foods of the same blessing. But if he made a blessing on a drink, we use an example of beer, but any drink, without having in mind anything else, if he had in mind whatever they bring in, that's shahakal, so it's no problem. He's blessing one on everything. But if he didn't have anything in mind, he just made a blessing on a drink, the blessing doesn't help for the fish. Why? I was sheikh of a dogim, beer and fish, a drink and a solid food. We just give an example of beer and fish, but any drink and any solid food. They are two totally distinct types of food. I mean, one second, two totally distinct types of food, because one is a solid and one is a liquid. This is a food, this is a drink. And therefore, the blessings that you make on one does not work for the other, unless either they were both in front of you when you made the blessing, or you had intention. So if you had intention, whatever they bring me, that's shahako, no problems. If you had in front of you, there was a plate of food on the table, and it just happened to be you're thirsty first, you made the blessing on the drink, that also works because it's in front of you. But if it wasn't in front of you and you didn't have in mind, unlike fruit, that the blessing on one fruit would work for another fruit they bring, a solid food to a liquid, or a drink liquid to a solid food, it doesn't help. It only helps if you had it in mind or if it was in front of you. Yeah, David, sorry to kept you waiting. Just wanted to finish the...
That's okay. When you were saying nuts, you have to point out that all nuts are very priyos, except peanuts are very priyadama.
Correct. So peanuts aren't really nuts; they're really legumes. So
But
it's
they're called
grows a different type of
peanuts.
plant. Yeah, we call it, true, we do call it nuts. And often you buy mixed nuts, and they well, usually peanuts are cheaper, so they fill it up with peanuts. But sometimes you know, it always goes,
The
it
higher
changes.
quality companies will put mixed nuts, and it'll say something like not more than 50% peanuts, or less than a certain percentage peanuts, because they know that thing that you're saying.
Yeah.
Also, while we're saying with berries, correct me if I'm wrong, all berries are very except for strawberries are very priyadama.
Yeah, strawberries, very priyadama. And generally the other berries are eights. You know, I'm not sure whether they're all eights other than that. I think there's different types. I'm not sure, but generally they're all eights. But see, you see, this is because strawberries growing up in Australia we had. I never ate a blueberry, a raspberry, or a blackberry. Never ate anything till I was married and came to America. I'm sure they had them somewhere, and they're definitely more common now. Now everything comes from every country, and it's all imported and brought by plane. But as a kid, I never had. So generally, yeah, all the berries go on trees. I just don't know if there's some other type of berry that I didn't come across yet that's hadama. You probably eat more of them than I have. Like, I never had a cherry. You know the fake cherries that they have. They go on cakes. I used to think they were cherries. I never had a cherry till I was about 30. An actual cherry, and I didn't know what it was. They didn't have them there. Never grew. So there we go.
Rabbi, does it make any difference whether the fruit is dried or fresh?
No, there's still going to be eights. The only difference would be sometimes with the dried fruit, they mush them and put them into bars or something. You can get those. So if there's not chunks, if it's like a smooth thing, it's not recognizable, then sometimes it becomes a shahakal because they've just mushed it up. It's a dried mush. But if it's recognizable chunks or separate pieces like regular dried fruit, then it's still ha'etz. And the same rules of all the other ha'etz blessings are going to apply to that as well. Okay. Number 6, Bov. So those who joined us, we're in chapter 57, Siman Nun Zayin, and we're up to Vov number 6. Now, everything we said till now, about when a blessing helps the other food is when a person's eating his own food. Now, obviously, he didn't prepare it because he would know what's coming. They wouldn't bring him something by surprise. But in other words, it's in his own home, essentially, or his own picnic. In other words, to include things that aren't there, he has to have them in mind. Aval, however, he's eating by someone else's home. Now, the bottom line is you don't know what they're bringing out next. Someone offers you a drink. They're going to bring something. You don't know what they're bringing. So what we're going to explain is that even without intending to actively have in mind everything else, you automatically are thinking whatever they bring because you have no idea what they're bringing. So when you're at someone else's home, once you made the blessing on one type of food, that's that blessing, it exempts every other food that has the same blessing. Even if when they bring out the second one, you ate all the first one up already. There's nothing left. Why? Because the akal talibadasa balabais. Whatever's being served is at the will and the choice of the host. It's not your will, right? So when it's up to me, it's my house, I'm bringing my food. So I can decide this is what I'm eating. I'm not taking anything else from the pantry. Therefore, if I bring something else, it's because I changed my mind. Oh, you changed your mind? Now you have to make a new blessing. Or I having in mind, I'm eating lunch now. And whatever I need to eat to fill me up, that's what I'm going to eat. And so therefore, when you bring more things, you start looking in the pantry or the fridge and you just bring more things that are the same blessing, it works. But when you're someone else's house, it's not up to you what's brought. It's up to the host. So since everything is dependent on the host's choice, then you taking something else is not a change of your mind. I made a blessing intending to eat what the host serves me. But if he had a different change, a definite change of mind. So for an example, the person, they decided, I don't want to overeat. So I'm only going to eat this small plate here, and that's it. I'm not eating anything more than that. And then, it was so delicious. They decide they're going to eat some more. So then that's a definite change of mind because you specifically had in mind only the blessing only goes on that and nothing else. But if you just made a bracha, a blessing without having more or less or this or that, automatically it works on everything the host brings because this whole meal is on the host's decision. But if a person had a definite change of mind, I'm only making the ha'etz on this one apple. I'm eating one apple and that's it. Then if he wants to eat more, atzarach levarach sheinis. Now he has to make a second blessing. Even if the host had no intention of serving more, but the guest requested more. You still don't need to make a blessing when you made a general blessing, because the guest makes the blessing with the rationale that the host is going to bring as much as they need to be satisfied. So someone else's home, the blessing goes in everything. Now, that's if you're invited for a meal. What if you just came in for a snack? Right. So when it comes to a meal, yeah, they brought out some hors d'oeuvres that were mushrooms, and you made a shahakal. So whatever he brings, so when he brings fish, meat, whatever he brings later, no problems, because you were having one where he brings you. But if you just came for a snack, they serve some potato chips. Not necessarily is anything else coming. A meal, obviously something else is coming. So when you make the blessing, even without actively having in mind whatever he brings me, it goes on this blessing. You automatically had that in mind without actively thinking it, because you're there for dinner. He's bringing you more food. But if you just came in just for a pack of chips, a little snack, not necessarily was anything coming. So you weren't necessarily expecting anything. So it's a slightly different case to when you eat a meal. Casual snack is different to a meal. So let's see how the rules go by casual snack. Thank you. Misha Balasuda. Someone came to a meal. So this is a more casual meal, as we're going to see. The nice and case, they gave him a cup of wine we're talking about. It just says cup, but it means wine. And he made a blessing on it. And then they gave him more cups. Right? He finished his wine. They refilled his cup. So it depends. If that's the norm, right? You go to someone's house, they invite you in for a drink, and you have a drink, and we're using whatever the drink is. I mean, here we're talking about general when it says a kois without specifying, it means wine. But let's say the same thing. They poured you a whiskey, they gave you a shot. If the norm is generally when you come to someone's house and they invite you in for a drink means if you finish it, quite often they'll refill your cup and they'll give you more. Then there's no problem, because kulam, without thinking specifically otherwise, your mind is on whatever they give you, whatever they serve you. And you don't need another blessing. So although it doesn't say this, the implication is if the norm is someone offers you a drink, they give you one drink and that's it. And happens to be this person was outside the norm and he refilled your cup, now you're going to need to make another blessing, because your base intention was this one drink and not more. Okay, as opposed to a meal where you're expecting whatever they bring you. So again, this gave the example of buying you for a drink. I gave the example of a packet of chips. Someone, offers you a snack, a packet of chips, and normally they give you a packet of chips, the little single serve packet of chips. The norm probably is you eat your chips and that's it. But after you ate your chips, you brought out popcorn. So if it was an official meal, and these are the appetizers, so then your intention was when you made hadama on the chips, your intention was whatever the host serves me. So he brings out now popcorn. Okay, good. I don't need another blessing. But if it was just a casual snack, so he gave you a packet of chips, you weren't expecting anything else, and therefore the intention was just the packet of chips. Now, if he brings popcorn, you have to make a new blessing. It's a fine line potentially, but that is where we draw that is the line. Any questions on that?
Rabbi, how long does that blessing, if somebody offers you a drink and you make the blessing and everybody in the afternoon they keep drinking, how long does that blessing last? Until a meal? Or
No,
do you
that's sitting. So in theory, imagine you had someone they sat for drinking for 3 hours straight. I'm sure they have a similar expression in America. They call it, the 2-hour lunch. People go out in the middle of the day and then they sit and they just drink for 2 hours. Okay, so if they were sitting and drinking for 2 hours, no problem. The blessing just goes because they were continually. Doesn't mean every second of those 2 hours, but regularly. However, someone had a drink now, and then 2 hours later he had a second drink, then that's a significant gap. So he would have to make a new blessing. So in concept, if they kept eating or kept drinking, then the same blessing goes. So that's sitting it works for. And some people sit down, they eat lunch, 5 minutes, they're done. That's it. They have intention not to eat anymore. It's all over. And then you have a Shabbos meal where you can be sitting potentially for a few hours with the family and different courses, and you're snacking, you're chatting and singing, but you're constantly partaking. Now, speaking of the Shabbos meal, it's a friend of mine had a college student for a meal. I should rephrase that. The college student was the guest. They weren't the meal. Right? It sounded terrible. They had a college student for a meal, right? They college student joined them for their Shabbos meal as a guest. And she hadn't had I guess, the traditional Shabbos meal before, unfortunately. And she came, and they made kiddush, they made hamotzi, they had a fish course. There was fish and various salads and dips. And however long it took, and they sang a song, and they had a Dvar Torah, and they chatted, and then they started to clear away the fish plates. So she helped clear up, and then she went and put on a coat. And they said, sorry, are you cold? This says, no. So we're finished. I said, no. Then came the soup, then came the chicken, of course, then came the dessert, right? It's there's eating and there's eating. So whatever that sitting happens to be. So it was just interesting. He told me about it. He was surprised that some people just they didn't know what eating means. Yes, David.
Just to correct what I said before about berries. I was originally taught the only exception is blueberries. So I asked, I have an AI from Microsoft called Copilot, and I asked them about the brachas. And the source is, they're not just making this up, the source is judaism.stackexchange.com, which is a halachic site for, okay. So they say that these berries are berei pri hadama, strawberries, which we said, cranberries, because they grow low to the ground and don't have a woody perennial stem. Blueberries are eights, but wild blueberries, which grow close to the ground. The common practice is say hadama, and blackberries or raspberries from thorny brambles. Based on Talmud Yerushalmi, these are some of the authorities consider these hadama if they're growing from low branches. So I clicked on the link, which is judaismstack.com, and there's a whole discussion. And they said the bottom.
So the first thing over there is that it's although it's a very interesting site to go look at, but everyone puts their own comments, and you don't have to have any qualification to put your comment. So the fact that someone that it says that doesn't necessarily. So cranberries, I did taste the dried cranberry once, but I don't think I've ever had a real fresh cranberry. So I wouldn't have the slightest idea how they grow. So I'll take your word on that one. The wild blueberries, now that you say that, I did hear that. The other ones, we said some authorities, so but I think the general practice they hates.
Yeah, so the source the source, I'm saying, even though that it's so they bring a source which is a safer the blessings on the laws of brachas by Rabbi Binyam Forst and Rabbi Aaron Twersky.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing. So that's good. So we clarified that.
So to
Excellent.
speak.
Yep. So before we start the new chapter, totally off topic, I just wanted to share a story that came my way because it just shows the beauty of the Jewish people. You know, it's so there was you know, unfortunately, people in Tel Aviv and other areas also, but the story happened in Tel Aviv. They've had to run to bomb shelters, you know, for protection. And so there was a fellow in his bakery, and he had to quickly run out to go to the bomb shelter. And although the bomb shelter wasn't damaged, Baruch Hashem, but I guess the access to the bomb shelter got blocked by rubble or something. So they came out an hour later than everyone else, you know, whatever it was. And there's been a time where they had to go in, had to go out. And anyway, he makes it back to his bakery, which he'd left open because he just ran, you know, you only got how many seconds. And pretty much everything's gone from his bakery. But he looks, there's notes. People have written notes. They wrote the note because people also didn't have time to run home and get money and different things. They got to quickly replenish their shelter. They put their name, their address. This is what I took. I'll come pay you. And he had all these things. And he went through all the notes, and there was nothing unaccounted for missing. No, make Amsli Yisrael. Who's like the Jewish people? Imagine in a city in America, someone ran out like that, left their bakery unattended, unlocked, or something, or any other store. You know, it might be someone left a note, but you know, so it's. I just wanted to share that. I found it very, very inspirational. Baruch Hashem.
Can you say that again?
Sorry.
Repeat that.
Yeah. So he was delayed coming out of the bomb shelter. It was blocked, his shelter. So when he came out, you know, he'd been unattended and open, I don't know, for however long. And most of his stock was gone. But when he looked behind the counter, everyone who takes them, they left the notes. You know, it said they gave their name and address, and this is what I took. And I'll come back and I'll pay, you know. And then this one, and then when he went through these notes, and he went through what was gone, nothing was unaccounted for. Everything. So you know, there are these people. I guess they had to come. You know, this short gap. And they got to replenish the bombs. They don't know when they're going back, how long they're going, so they couldn't wait around for him. But no one wanted to steal. You know,
Store.
Beautiful thing.
What was it? You said it was a grocery store?
I think it was a bakery. Is what I heard. He could be the bakery sold, you know, drinks and all kinds of whatever it was. But a huge amount of his stock had gone. But it was all accounted for, Baruch Hashem.
Where was this?
In Tel Aviv. I was just saying, you know, I think if a similar thing happened in any of the towns where we live, I'm not sure it'll be accounted for.
Rabbi, can I just make a comment?
Please.
In 1978, I went to Israel. I didn't have a place to stay, and I was in the big area where the plane landed. I was getting my luggage, and I was worried. I would ask the information, where can I stay one night, because I have to go to a fulla. And there was somebody behind me and a young man, he said, you can stay with my family in our house. And then tomorrow, so I went with this young man and he introduced me to his mother, his father, his 3 brothers, his 2 sisters, and they let me stay for one night. They wouldn't take any money. They fed me. I couldn't believe it. I was so in shock. And later on, I wrote a letter from, I was living in Miami. Later on, I wrote a letter thanking them. And they wrote back to me that they enjoyed my company. And I mean, it was a really amazing experience. This is in 1978, though, remember. Life was different.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem, it's generosity. I mean, again, without being off topic so much, you look in every established Jewish community, there's a gemach. We're going to loosely call it a loan fund. There's gemach for baby supplies, for medical supplies, a free loan fund. There's people cook meals for people just gave birth, or people chas v'shalom had a loss. It just goes on and on and on. Which other communities do you find this multitude of there's the kindness and generosity of the Jewish people as a whole?
I saw one for
In every group, there's people aren't perfect yet. Well, none of us perfect, but some people have further to go than others. So there's always I don't want to say rotten apple, because we can't say that about another Jew, but there's there's some people have to work on themselves a bit more than the rest of us. But generally speaking, the communities, the Jewish people, it's something that is unbelievable that you don't find anywhere else. It's just something special.
I saw one for wedding gowns.
Yeah, wedding gowns, exactly. Unbelievable. Baruch Hashem. Okay, Simon Nun, that's chapter 58. Now, till now, we've been speaking about blessings on food. Now we're going to speak about the blessing on smell. Right? And I felt bad because we had a few people ask questions about these blessings, in the process of what we've been learning. I said, we're getting there. But I didn't answer that question because, as we're going to see, there's a whole chapter. So there's obviously quite a few conditions and different factors and different things, and you can't summarize that in one sentence. We need to go through it. So I apologize to those who've been waiting to wait so long, and now we get to it. So just a very quick introduction. There's a blessing. So these are called birchas hanenin, and we've been just calling blessings on food, just simplify it. But birchas hanenin literally means blessing of hana. Now, hana is a benefit of enjoyment. There's not an exact word for it in English. You get benefit, but it's an enjoyable benefit. So the same way that we get benefit, we get hana from food. We get benefit. We're hungry. It takes away our hunger, and it tastes good, and we enjoy it. So nice smelling things can also give hana. We can also, some people like having, those scented candles, different things. Some people can't stand it, but some people, whatever it is, people normally like it. Nice flowers or smell of fresh fruit, especially this coming to season. There's enjoyment. Now, it's obviously not as tangible as food. Smell's not as tangible. So the rules are going to be slightly different because of that. But there is such a thing as having hana, having this enjoyment / benefit. So it's also part of the birchas hanenin, the blessings on hana, on benefit enjoyment. So let's get to it. Aleph, number 1. Just as it's forbidden for a person to have hana, to enjoy / have benefit from food and drink before they make a blessing, right? You have to make a blessing to thank God before you get benefit of it. So too, you're not allowed to have benefit from the good smell before you make a blessing. The same idea. How do we know this? Shnema because it says it's in Tehillim, Psalms, Kol Neshama Halal Ka. Right? The blessing is that all souls praise Hashem. Now, what does it mean a soul praising Hashem, as opposed to a person in general? Why specifically a soul? What is the thing that the soul has enjoyment, and the body does not have enjoyment? This is smell. Smell, for lack of a better term, is more of a spiritual benefit than food. Food benefits the body. The body doesn't get any benefit from smell. But your soul, I mean, your soul is your psyche, is your personality, is it's who you are under the piece of flesh. That enjoys the smell. So we have to praise Hashem even for benefits only the soul has, including smell.
Rabbi, is there a blessing on
Yeah.
smelling salts? When somebody faints?
I'm not sure
not
that's
sure
a good
that's a good
smell. It's a
smell.
good smell. In other words, you enjoy the smell. Smelling salts shocks the person, jolts them to wake him up. So it's not enjoyment per se. Yeah, David.
It's fragrance is a
Mm.
good word to use.
Fragrance is probably a much better, clearer word. I think you're not, but a nice fragrance, right? There's plenty of things that might loosely be called a fragrance that we wish we never encountered. But a pleasant smelling fragrance that we enjoy, we have benefit. But an after blessing we don't make. On food, not only we make a blessing beforehand, we make an after blessing. And in a certain respect, the after blessing is more important than the before blessing. Because food, the after blessing is that tangible benefit, that sustenance, the nutrients, the experience that we had. But smell, once the smell leaves your nostrils, you don't smell it anymore. The benefit's gone. There's no lasting benefit like there is by food. So therefore, there's no after blessing. So it's the same as food that's already been digested. So we learned earlier that if a person forgot to make an after blessing, then until they've digested the food, which on solid food is an average of, generally speaking, about 72 minutes, I mean, the body might still be digesting on a certain level, but a person's not full from it anymore. There's been a significant digestion after the meal, after the eating. So after that, you can't make a blessing anymore because the benefit has dissipated, so to speak, or the main benefit. So when the smell goes away, it's the equivalent of food that was already digested. There's no ongoing benefit at this moment. So that's why there's no after blessing on smell, only a blessing before on fragrance. So that's the general introduction. Now we come to number 2, and we're going to start discussing how, when, what, where, exactly what the procedures. So base number 2. How do you make, or what is a blessing? What's the process on a pleasant fragrance? If the item that has the smell, the thing that you're smelling, so it's going to depend what it is going to be one of the factors. That's the factor discussing first. So let's say it's an edible fruit. You have an esrog. Delicious smell. Whether this is a fruit of a tree or fruit of the ground, it's irrelevant for this blessing. For the eating blessing, there's a difference. There are different blessings. When it comes to smell, if it's an edible produce, Even if you can't eat it at this moment on its own, it can only be eaten if it's mixed with something else. Going for example, egois mishkat, nutmeg. You don't eat it straight. You put in something else to eat it. Or citron, or a citron fruit. Here you're talking about a lemon. The esrog or an esrog. Sukkos all year round except for Sukkos. We'll explain the different Sukkos then. Mikal Mokim, nevertheless, Kivan Sheikra Lachilom, even though you don't eat it straight or on its own, since its main purpose is for eating, Mavarech, the blessing you make. So of course you say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, Asher Nosain Reach Toiv Bepeirus. Nosain Reach Toiv Bepeirus. Blessed you Hashem, King of the universe, who gave sweet fragrance, a pleasant aroma to produce, to fruit. So everyone's used to Havdalah. We say Brei Minei Summ. Now what we're going to say, what we're going to get to later in the chapter, is the same way Shehakol, after the fact. Because, we have specific brachas, Brei Minei Mezonos. But if you say Brei Pri Adama, because the fruit of the ground, so that cake, the wheat, it grew from the ground, it worked. It's not, you have to make the most specific one possible, but if you made it more general one, it works. Or if you made Shehakol, thank Hashem for created everything. It works after the fact. So Berei Minei Mesomim, which is the one everyone's familiar to from Havdalah, that's the general one. It's like Shehakol for the food. That means you just create different types of spice, I guess, smelly things, nice smelly things, not smelly things, but fragrant things. But we want it to be as specific as possible. So if it's an edible fruit, so we say the blessing, blessed is Hashem, who gave a sweet, pleasant aroma to fruit. Yeah, Susan, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, yes, I mean, I put nutmeg in waffles when I make waffles. The main ingredient though is tapioca, starch, and egg and milk.
Right.
And nutmeg.
So that's what we're saying. Even though it's a food you don't eat on its own. So you might have thought, since you don't eat it straight, you put it as an ingredient, a spice, something else, you might have thought maybe that takes it out of the category of fruit or produce. So what it's saying is that even though you don't eat it on its own, you eat it mixed with something else. But since the primary purpose is to eat, it still falls into this category. So if you smell nutmeg, you would say, it gives the pleasant aroma to produce. Now, when does this apply? The davkashin is kavan boy. This is specifically if you intended to smell it. But if you didn't intend to smell it, you intended to eat it. You took a nice, delicious mango, and you're intending to eat it. But as you hold it up to your mouth, what happens is, automatically you smell it. Then you don't need to make a blessing on the smell. Because that's not what you're enjoying right now. It's not your purpose. If you picked up the fruit and you gave it a smell, even though you're going to cut up and eat it in 2 minutes, but you specifically wanted to smell it and enjoy the smell, then you make the blessing. But if it just happened to smell the fragrance as you were eating it, you don't need a blessing. Okay. Now here's one that is not well known, and it could affect a lot of people if you're a coffee drinker. So a lot of people, before they drink their coffee in the morning, this happens to be tea, herbal tea, but in the morning I have a coffee usually. A lot of people, before they have their coffee, before they drink it, they enjoy the aroma. So they're not just smelling it as they drink it. They're actually smelling it on purpose for the enjoyment. Oh, So what happens there? Amareach bekafe. Kaloi, someone who smells their roasted coffee. Shirei shloi reach toy, which has a pleasant aroma. Mavarach, he should make this blessing. Asher nosein reich toy v'peiros. So if you're one of the people who likes to have a good smell of your coffee in the morning before you drink it, so now you have the blessing. So the siddur that I normally have on this desk, I packed. All right, we're pretty much all packed up now. All right, Thursday night we fly out. Now I apologize. Probably Sunday I'm not going to. It's going to be someone else doing the class because I'm going to be in transit on Sunday. I do apologize, but maybe we'll get another chance during the week or maybe swap with someone. But thank you, thank you.
Travel
And for
well.
thank you. Amen. So, but it's so I can't look up the page in the siddur with the blessings, but after the morning service, and the truth is, I guess different people might have different siddurim. Some people have the Chabad, the Tilas Hashem. Some might have an Askol, but generally speaking, sometime between the morning service and the afternoon service, or the weekday, there's a page with all the various blessings, or more than one page. So if you look in your siddur, you'll find these blessings. So you don't have to necessarily remember them off by heart. You can open up the siddur and remember. So tomorrow morning, if you're planning on having a good smell of your coffee, you can look up this blessing.
But Rebbe, he's made it sound like two steps. He said when it's like roasting. So I would say that if you're roasting the coffee, when you roast it, it makes a beautiful smell. That's when you make the bracha. But sipping the already made coffee from the cup, I didn't
sipping, you don't make the blessing. Some of you deliberately smell it. The truth is, so it really depends. Actually, I mean, the Mishnah Brura, he this is taken from the Big Shulchan Aruch. This so the Mishnah Brura, when he comments on this, he says this is specifically if you smell the hot ground coffee beans.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. When you're
hot ground coffee
brewing the
beans.
coffee, when you're roasting the coffee, you're not
roast the coffee,
it.
or if you you have one of the percolators in people. I don't know if people have those anymore.
That's brewing it. That's not roasting
but the ground beans are in it, in the machine, and it lets out the smell. But my understanding of how we rule is that even if you would smell the coffee itself.
My father once came to me with a question. What happened was there was a bakery, and a bakery, makes a lot of nice, different smelling things. And there was an owner, the poor guy who would stand in front of the bakery. Such a machaya. And he would stand in front and just inhale and enjoy. So the baker came out and said, "Excuse me, pay me. You're standing here enjoying this for free. You can't just enjoy this for free." And the woman says, "What are you talking about? I'm not hitting you." He goes, "No, no, no." And he grabs him by the collar and he takes him to the Rav. And now they're in front of the Rav. And he says to the Rav, he's standing in front of my store, smelling and enjoying the smell of my bakery goods. And the Rav listens and then turns to the poor man and says, "Give me your wallet." And the owner goes, "What? Let me answer. Let me tell. I mean, I'm standing. Give me your wallet." So the owner reaches into his pocket and takes out his little pocket thing with 2 coins in there, maybe, and he hands it to the Rav. And the Rav stands there holding it and turns to the baker and says, your claim is that you want to be paid because he stands in front and smells your bakery goods? And the guy's smiling and he goes, yes, Rabbi. He goes, good. You can listen to the sound of his money.
Yeah. Sounds fair to me. Sounds fair to me. The truth is actually, so with the coffee, see, I wasn't gonna go too much into it, but it's because since you mentioned it as about being the actual coffee, the beans, so it leads us to another dispute, right? And this is where it comes from. We learned earlier that the blessing on olive oil is ha'etz, the fruit of the tree, because the oil is the product of the olive tree, of that variety of olive, right? So they're not eating varieties, they're oil. So there is a whole discussion, and there is a view. It's not how we rule. It's not how we rule, but there is a view that coffee should be ha'etz. Because how do you consume the fruit of the coffee? I mean, they call it coffee beans, but it's like a little berry. How do you consume that fruit in coffee? No one sits there and eats the berries off the tree. No, it's the way this food is eaten is through this process.
Nobody chews beans.
So I mean, look, there are some people who eat, roasted coffee
Anything,
beans.
anything, broken glass, I know. But I'm just saying, but it's not the normal way that it's
Yeah, no, there
enjoyed.
are sometimes roasted coffee beans, sometimes in chocolate. People eat it, but the normal way generally to consume this fruit is made into coffee. So there is a halachic view that therefore you should say ha'etz on coffee. Now we don't rule that way. Why? Generally because it's a dispute. Because at the end of the day, it's the water flavor of the coffee. Yes, there is dissolved beans in there, but so by saying shahakol, which is the more general blessing, we're either saying the right blessing or after the fact it works anyway, even for is ha'etz. Right? So
Why
that's why.
ha'etz? Why
Sorry.
does it because it's drunk as part of a roasted product in
No,
water?
because that
Why
is
does it
how you
convert?
consume. How do you
Right.
consume the fruit of this tree? In coffee.
Ah, so you're saying so it's not adama, it's
It's ha'etz. Right. So therefore there is a view that's how it is anyway. Right? We don't in practice we don't do that. Because there's a view it's still shahakol, and as we know anyway, shahakol is more inclusive. So by saying shahakol, we cover all bases. Either we got it right in the first instance, or at least after the fact, we're covered. While if we said more specific, and that view is not 100% correct, then we didn't say anything. Right? So that's why we say shahakol. But the same question would apply here: is this product? Is it the fruit? Is it the fruit, or is it the the uh so is it only if you smell actual coffee beans or even the coffee? Right? In other words, the coffee has dissolved coffee. Is that the fruit? So um if it's coffee, if the coffee is considered the product of the coffee tree, coffee bush, whatever it is, then definitely you would say asher nosen the reach l'toy b'peiros, because you're saying the blessing of smelling of fruit, and if not, then for sure, I mean, if you're enjoying the smell, you might say, Brahman, we're going to go to the other blessings that we say. Okay. So if it's the actual fruit, then we say this blessing. The number 3, but if it's the fragrance is a tree, or minha eitz, or like a tree. So let's say an example, hadassim, the myrtle. A lot of people like to smell the myrtle branch. So it's not a fruit, but it comes from a tree. Mavarech, then the blessing is boirei eitze besomim. Right? You say Baruch Hashem Elokeinu Melech who creates fragrant trees. And there are many people who have the custom to actually smell myrtle on Friday night, because on Shabbos we, during every day we're meant to say 100 blessings. And when you say the weekday Shemona Esrei, the weekday in Middah, you got 19 blessings in each one. And so, you eat, you do a few things. The 100 blessings comes very quickly, all the davening. But on Shabbos, the Middah is only 7 blessings. So we have a shortfall. So one of the things that people do is they have the custom to perhaps smell nice things, and that part of the world, myrtle was, in Israel and various things, the Middle East, the was abundant. It's its natural habitat, and pretty much grows all year round. And so people would often take it and smell it on Shabbos. And therefore, al hadas on the myrtle branch, valvered
And
or rose.
I've said what my father said about that. He learned as a young bacher you have to make 100 brachos a day.
Yeah.
And it was only when he became older that he learned that you can be yaitze. You can satisfy half of them with asher yotzer.
Blessing after going to the bathroom. Yes, it can happen. So shikoir and rosin, right? They're called roses. Val halavoina, or frankincense, kietzemehem and the like. Mavarach, we make the blessing. Boire eitze besomim, who created the sweet-smelling, fragrant trees. Because the main purpose is not to eat, it's to smell. They're not a fruit that has the main purpose to eat, like the nutmeg.
Rabbi, David has
Yeah.
something to say, right, David?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, if I'm following the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, this thing of smelling the roasted coffee, Asher no sein reach tov b'perus, the Alter Rebbe holds by that? Or he says that?
Well, I don't think I don't believe he says those words, because I don't think he discusses smelling coffee. This is my take based on the discussion. In other words, it's a product of a bush. I mean, it doesn't have to, it's whether Eitz Adam is the same, and it's designed to eat, and it has a sweet smell. So definitely on the ground, the roasted coffee, if you smell that definitely got to do.
So we're
You
saying
just smell it for the sake of smelling it, not because you're making coffee, but you smell the roasted grounded. But my opinion is that it would apply to the made coffee as well. So
thank
You
you.
heard them both.
up to you how you go with that one. So, but something that's not made for eating, like the myrtle or a rose, although it comes from a tree, it's a different blessing. Now, al pilpulin valzandul, but pepper and ginger, we have a dispute. Yesh devarchim, yesh ein devarchim. Some say you do make a blessing, some say you don't. Al kain ein derech behem. Therefore, don't sit and smell ginger or pepper, right? Because what's this dispute? In other words, spices, let's say like pepper and ginger, are they seasonings. In other words, the which company food,
You know, the problem is ginger.
or are they
ginger can
smelling
be a
spices
tea.
to be enjoyed?
Ginger can be made into a tea, but it can also be dried and eaten as dried fruit. So
Right.
it's almost not even, shouldn't even buy it or eat it or drink it.
So the
It's a
best is
dispute, you
try to
know?
avoid smelling it because it's a dispute. I mean, while you're eating it, you can be smelling something, but don't take chunks and just sit and, you know, smell. I don't think many people enjoy smelling pepper. I mean, here we're talking about, you know, not peppers, you know, the vegetable. We're talking about, you know, actual peppercorns. I don't think many people are sniffing them anyway.
I have a bottle
All
of
right.
next to me that I use for nausea, nausea and vomiting. That
Oh.
it's here it is, ginger root.
Okay.
I never
Does it
heard
smell
of that
good?
for nausea, because I have nausea all the time, and I use peppermint, I use Altoids. I've never heard of ginger being a solution.
Nature's Way ginger root. Take 2 capsules daily. Check it out on Amazon.com.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
Hashem should bless you. You don't need it, but Hashem should bless you. It should be effective if you ever do need it.
Amen.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I have a question. You know, for Havdalah, we say, you know, bisamim, when we smell the
Yeah.
cinnamon or we smell the mint. I know the Sfaradim, they have a custom of throwing mint around a table and they'll smell the mint. Now, what I want to ask you is that why they say bisamim, but why not, because mint is edible, wouldn't
Yeah.
that another bracha be included with the bisamim? I'm just curious.
Okay, so it's an excellent question. Generally speaking, even though we're going to learn about these specific blessings on different things, the general custom is for Havdalah to say Brayman and Besomim, because we have a set text for Havdalah, and we want to sort of keep Havdalah the same, regardless of what we're smelling.
I see.
But if we were to smell the same thing, not a Havdalah, we might make a specific blessing on it.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So we've gone over time. Not on right time. We've gone
You
over
have
time,
to
but that's
just
fine.
hold back and avoid eating it. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm just saying to Moshe, you have to just hold yourself back, and then when you get to eating it, then you make the bracha on eating it.
All right. So wish everyone a wonderful week, and we'll not
Stay
sure when our
safe.
next class
Stay
together will be, but it'll be soon, God willing.
Thank you, Rebbe, and our good.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you very much. Thank
You have
you.
a good month.
Thank you.
Like,
And thank you, Rabbi.
everybody.
You, Rabbi.